Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk about 9 key pitfalls women should avoid when dealing with men. These are not just guidelines to keep harmony, they're principles that help foster mutual growth and understanding. By avoiding these mistakes, you don't just strengthen the bond, you also empower yourself to create healthier and more fulfilling relationships. Let's dive into these 9 points, not to criticize, but to elevate the way we interact and connect with one another. Boundaries are the invisible lines that define where one person ends and another begins. In any healthy relationship, understanding and respecting those lines is essential. Yet, ignoring boundaries, whether they're yours or someone else's, can lead to conflict, resentment, and ultimately the deterioration of trust. What does it mean to ignore boundaries? It might start with something small, stepping into someone's personal space without permission, dismissing their need for alone time, or insisting they should act, think, or feel a certain way because it aligns with your expectations. While these actions may seem trivial, they chip away at the foundation of respect that every relationship relies on. For women, especially in relationships with men, the idea of boundaries can sometimes get blurry. Why? Because there's often a natural inclination to nurture, support, and connect. These are beautiful qualities, but when they come at the expense of respecting boundaries, they can create unintended tension. For instance, when you constantly feel the need to fix or improve someone, you might cross into a territory where your actions feel more controlling than caring. This isn't to say you shouldn't help your partner grow, quite the opposite. But growth must be mutual and, most importantly, voluntary. Respecting boundaries begins with understanding. Start by recognizing your own limits. Ask yourself, what am I willing to give and where do I draw the line? Knowing this will help you approach the relationship with clarity. Once you've established your own boundaries, it's time to learn about your partner's. And this doesn't happen through assumption, it happens through communication. A man might not outright tell you, "This is my boundary," but through his actions and words, you can sense what matters to him. Maybe he values his time at the gym as his personal sanctuary. Perhaps he needs quiet moments after work to decompress. Ignoring these cues, no matter how unintentional, sends the message that his preferences don't matter. There's also the question of emotional boundaries. These are just as important as physical ones. When someone shares their thoughts or feelings with you, they're opening a door, but that doesn't mean you're allowed to walk through it uninvited. It's tempting to jump in with advice or try to steer the conversation toward a solution, but sometimes what's needed most is simple acknowledgement. Respecting emotional boundaries means being present without trying to control the narrative. Now, let's talk about the consequences of ignoring boundaries. When you fail to recognize and honor these limits, you might find yourself facing resistance. A man might withdraw, not because he doesn't care, but because he feels overwhelmed. Or he might become defensive, interpreting your actions as an invasion of his independence. Over time, this can create a cycle of miscommunication and frustration, where neither party feels fully understood. On the flip side, when boundaries are respected, relationships flourish. Respecting boundaries shows that you value your partner's individuality, that you see them as a whole person, separate from yourself, with their own dreams, needs, and preferences. It creates a space where trust can thrive, where both individuals feel safe to express themselves without fear of judgment or overreach. Of course, respecting boundaries doesn't mean you ignore your own needs. It's about balance, finding the middle ground where both individuals feel seen and heard. This might require compromise, but compromise should never feel like a sacrifice of your core values or identity. Let's not overlook the role of self-awareness. Sometimes crossing boundaries happens not out of malice, but out of a lack of understanding both of yourself and the other person. Take the time to reflect on your own actions. Are you inadvertently pushing too hard because you're afraid of losing control? Are you holding on too tightly because of insecurity or fear? Addressing these internal drivers can help you approach relationships from a place of confidence and respect. Remember, boundaries aren't walls, they're bridges. They create a clear pathway for connection by outlining what's acceptable and what's not. They're a way of saying, "This is who I am, and I respect who you are." In a world where misunderstandings often arise from unclear expectations, boundaries serve as a roadmap for navigating relationships with intention and care. When you learn to honor boundaries, you'll notice a shift not just in how your partner responds, but in how you feel about yourself. There's a strength that comes with respecting others while standing firm in your own truth. It's a practice that demands patience, self-reflection, and humility, but the rewards are worth it. Boundaries aren't just about saying no, they're about knowing when to say yes and doing so with clarity and purpose. They're not a rejection, they're an invitation to understand each other better. And in that understanding lies the foundation for a relationship that's not just good but extraordinary. Communication is the lifeblood of any relationship. Without it, even the strongest bonds can wither. Suppressing communication, whether intentionally or unintentionally, creates barriers that slowly but surely undermine trust, understanding, and connection. For women, this often manifests in two ways: withholding what needs to be said or failing to create an environment where a man feels comfortable sharing his thoughts. When you suppress communication, you don't just avoid conflict, you delay resolution. Imagine a small issue, something as simple as feeling overlooked during a conversation. If left unaddressed, it doesn't disappear. Instead, it festers, turning into frustration, resentment, or even anger over time. What could have been solved in a 5-minute discussion now becomes a larger problem that feels much harder to approach. One of the most common reasons communication gets suppressed is fear of upsetting the other person, fear of being misunderstood, or fear of rejection. These fears are natural, but they shouldn't dictate your actions. Open communication doesn't mean every conversation will be easy, but it does mean that you value the relationship enough to address the hard things. Now, let's flip the perspective. A relationship isn't just about your ability to speak, it's also about your ability to listen. Suppressing communication doesn't only happen when you withhold your own thoughts, it also happens when you fail to truly hear what your partner is trying to share. Men, just like women, need to feel safe when opening up. If a man senses that his words will be met with criticism, dismissal, or disinterest, he may stop trying to communicate altogether. It's important to recognize the subtle ways communication can be suppressed. For instance, how often do you avoid certain topics because you assume the other person won't care or won't understand? How often do you change the subject or interrupt because you feel uncomfortable or eager to move on? These behaviors might seem small in the moment, but they send a powerful message. What you feel or think isn't worth discussing. Creating an environment where communication flows freely requires intention. It starts with building trust. This means showing that you're not only willing to listen, but that you're also open to hearing things that might challenge you. Trust also means allowing room for vulnerability, not just from your partner, but from yourself as well. When you express your own thoughts and feelings honestly, you set the tone for how communication will function in the relationship. Another key to fostering communication is empathy. Listening isn't just about hearing words, it's about understanding the emotion and intent behind them. If a man shares something he's struggling with, resist the urge to immediately offer solutions or dismiss his concerns. Instead, ask questions. Show curiosity. Let him know that his experiences matter. This doesn't mean you need to have all the answers. It means you need to create a space where dialogue feels safe and valued. Nonverbal communication is another aspect to consider. Actions, expressions, and body language often speak louder than words. You might say, "I'm listening," but if your arms are crossed, your phone is in your hand, or your eyes are elsewhere, the message you send is very different. Being present fully and genuinely is one of the simplest yet most effective ways to show that communication is welcomed. Suppression of communication often leads to assumptions, and assumptions are dangerous territory. When you don't express how you feel or what you need, you leave your partner guessing, and when you rely on guessing, misunderstandings are inevitable. Similarly, when a man feels like he can't communicate openly, he might retreat into silence, leading you to misinterpret his actions or intentions. The cycle of assumptions grows, creating distance instead of connection. Honest communication doesn't mean there won't be disagreements. In fact, disagreements are natural. They're opportunities to understand each other better. The key is to approach them with respect and a willingness to resolve, not to win. When you suppress communication, you deny yourself these opportunities to grow together. Consider the long-term impact. A relationship built on suppressed communication will eventually crack under the weight of unspoken words. On the other hand, relationships where communication flows openly are marked by resilience. These are the relationships where both individuals feel seen, heard, and valued. Self-care is not a luxury, it's a necessity. In any relationship, neglecting your own well-being to focus entirely on someone else might feel noble in the short term, but it's a path to burnout and imbalance. When women prioritize the needs of others, especially men, over their own physical, emotional, and mental health, they often end up feeling drained, unappreciated, and disconnected from themselves. Neglecting self-care can show up in subtle ways. It might look like always saying yes to accommodate another person's schedule, even when it disrupts your own. It might feel like putting off personal goals because you believe someone else's needs are more pressing. Over time, these small sacrifices accumulate, creating a pattern where your identity becomes tied solely to how much you can give. While generosity and support are wonderful traits, they should never come at the expense of your own health and happiness. One of the key reasons women neglect self-care is the perception that putting themselves first is selfish. But let's be clear, self-care is not selfish, it's an investment in your ability to show up fully for others. You can't pour from an empty cup. If you constantly give without replenishing, the quality of your energy, focus, and presence will inevitably decline. By taking care of yourself, you ensure that you can continue to give from a place of strength and abundance, not exhaustion. Physical self-care is often the first area to suffer. Skipping meals, neglecting exercise, or not getting enough sleep might seem like small compromises, but they take a toll on your energy and mood. When you're tired, stressed, or unwell, it becomes harder to engage meaningfully in your relationships. Prioritizing physical health doesn't mean spending hours at the gym or following a strict diet. It means listening to your body and honoring its needs. Emotional self-care is equally important. This involves setting aside time to process your feelings, reflect on your experiences, and nurture your inner self. It might mean journaling, meditating, or simply taking a walk in nature. Emotional neglect often leads to feelings of overwhelm, resentment, or emptiness, feelings that, if left unaddressed, can spill over into your relationships. Another aspect of self-care is maintaining your individuality. Relationships thrive when both people bring their full, authentic selves to the table. Neglecting your passions, hobbies, or personal ambitions in favor of someone else's priorities diminishes the unique qualities you bring to the relationship. Staying connected to what lights you up, not just as a partner, but as an individual, is a cornerstone of self-care. Boundaries are a crucial part of self-care. Without them, it's easy to overextend yourself, agreeing to things that don't align with your values or capabilities. Setting boundaries doesn't mean pushing others away. It means protecting your time and energy so that you can engage meaningfully when it truly matters. It's also important to recognize the role of mindset in self-care. The belief that you must earn rest or relaxation often drives people to neglect their needs. But self-care isn't something you have to justify. It's a fundamental part of living a balanced and fulfilling life. Taking a break, saying no, or carving out time for yourself are not signs of weakness, they're signs of strength and self-respect. Relationships are partnerships, and a strong partnership requires both individuals to take responsibility for their own well-being. When you neglect self-care, you place an unfair burden on the other person to fill the gaps you've left unattended. On the other hand, when you take care of yourself, you lead by example, showing that well-being is a priority and creating space for your partner to do the same. Let's also consider the ripple effect of self-care. When you're well-rested, energized, and fulfilled, you bring a different energy into your interactions. You're more patient, compassionate, and attentive. The effort you invest in yourself doesn't just benefit you, it enhances the quality of every relationship you're part of. Enabling bad behavior is one of the quickest ways to erode respect and trust in a relationship. It might seem easier in the moment to turn a blind eye, excuse actions, or avoid confrontation, but these choices often create larger issues over time. Allowing someone to continue patterns of harmful behavior, whether through silence, justification, or passive acceptance, doesn't help them grow. It reinforces the very actions that may ultimately harm the relationship. What does enabling bad behavior look like? It can take many forms, some of which might feel subtle. It might mean constantly forgiving repeated mistakes without addressing the underlying problem, rationalizing disrespectful comments because he's just stressed, or cleaning up the mess, literal or figurative, that he's left behind. These actions, though often well-intentioned, send the message that certain behaviors are acceptable. One reason women may enable bad behavior is the desire to maintain peace. Confrontation can feel uncomfortable, and there's often a fear that calling out harmful actions might lead to conflict or even jeopardize the relationship. However, avoiding these necessary conversations doesn't eliminate the problem, it allows it to persist, often at the expense of your own boundaries and well-being. Another common reason for enabling is the belief that you can fix someone by being patient or accommodating enough. While support and understanding are valuable, they are not substitutes for accountability. True growth only happens when a person recognizes and takes responsibility for their actions. By enabling bad behavior, you rob them of that opportunity. It's important to distinguish between helping someone through a tough time and enabling patterns that undermine the relationship. Support means standing beside someone as they work to overcome challenges, while enabling means excusing or covering up their refusal to address those challenges. For example, if a man struggles with procrastination, support might look like encouraging him to set goals or offering help with time management. Enabling, on the other hand, might look like constantly picking up the slack for him or pretending it's not a problem. Accountability is key. Holding someone accountable doesn't mean criticizing or shaming them. It means setting clear expectations and being consistent in how you respond to their behavior. If certain actions are damaging to the relationship, it's important to communicate this openly and calmly. For instance, if a partner is consistently late or unreliable, addressing it might sound like, "I've noticed this pattern, and it's affecting how I feel about our plans. Can we talk about how to address it?" This approach focuses on the behavior and its impact, not on attacking the person. Enabling bad behavior also takes a toll on self-respect. When you tolerate actions that go against your values, you diminish your own sense of worth. Over time, this can lead to resentment, not just toward the other person, but toward yourself for allowing it to happen. Self-respect is foundational to any healthy relationship, and that includes respecting your own boundaries and standards. Recognizing enabling behavior requires self-awareness. Ask yourself, am I excusing this behavior because I'm afraid of what might happen if I don't? Am I sacrificing my own needs or values to keep the peace? These questions can help you identify patterns that might be contributing to the problem. It's also important to understand that enabling bad behavior doesn't just affect you, it affects the person you're enabling. By tolerating or excusing harmful actions, you prevent them from experiencing the natural consequences of their choices. Growth often comes from discomfort, and when you shield someone from that discomfort, you delay their ability to learn and improve. This doesn't mean you need to be harsh or unkind. On the contrary, addressing bad behavior can be an act of care and respect. It shows that you believe in the other person's ability to do better and that you value the relationship enough to address issues directly. However, change is ultimately their responsibility. You can offer support and encouragement, but you cannot do the work for them. The comparison game is a trap that can damage both self-esteem and relationships. It's human nature to look around and measure your life against others, but when it comes to relationships, this habit can quickly spiral into negativity. Comparing your partner to other men or your relationship to someone else's creates a standard that is often unrealistic, unfair, and deeply harmful to connection and trust. Comparison starts small. Perhaps you notice how a friend's partner surprises her with flowers, and you wonder why your partner doesn't do the same. Or maybe you scroll through social media and see picture-perfect couples, seemingly without a care in the world, and suddenly your own relationship feels inadequate. While these comparisons might seem harmless at first, they plant seeds of dissatisfaction that can grow into resentment or frustration. One of the core issues with playing the comparison game is that it's based on incomplete information. You're comparing the private, complex reality of your relationship to the curated, often idealized version of someone else's. What you see on the surface, a romantic gesture, a sweet photo, or a happy moment, doesn't show the challenges, disagreements, or compromises that are an inevitable part of any partnership. When you hold your relationship up to these filtered snapshots, you're holding it to an impossible standard. This habit doesn't just affect how you see your relationship, it also affects how you see your partner. Constantly comparing them to others can make them feel like they're always falling short, no matter how much they do or how hard they try. Imagine if the roles were reversed and you were repeatedly compared to someone else, a coworker, an ex, or a stranger online. It wouldn't motivate you, it would discourage and alienate you. Comparison also creates a scarcity mindset, where you focus on what you don't have instead of appreciating what you do. Instead of recognizing the unique qualities your partner brings to the relationship, you fixate on what you think is missing. Maybe they're not as romantic as someone else's partner, but perhaps they're incredibly supportive, loyal, or thoughtful in ways that aren't as obvious but are just as meaningful. Playing the comparison game often reflects an inner dissatisfaction. It's not just about the relationship, it's about how you feel about yourself. When you're confident in who you are and secure in your choices, you're less likely to seek validation by measuring up to others. Self-awareness and self-compassion are essential here. Ask yourself why you feel the need to compare. Is it coming from insecurity, unmet expectations, or pressure to meet societal ideals? Addressing these root causes can help you break free from the cycle of comparison. Healthy relationships thrive on individuality. No two people are the same, and no two relationships should be either. What works for one couple may not work for another, and that's okay. The goal isn't to replicate someone else's dynamic, but to create one that reflects your values, strengths, and shared vision. Communication plays a critical role in overcoming the comparison trap. If you find yourself wishing for certain things, talk about them openly with your partner instead of letting silent resentment build. For example, if you admire how another couple spends quality time together, use it as inspiration rather than a benchmark. Discuss how you can incorporate similar moments into your own relationship in a way that feels natural and meaningful for both of you. Another powerful antidote to comparison is gratitude. Take time to reflect on what you appreciate about your partner and your relationship. Maybe it's their sense of humor, their unwavering support during tough times, or the little ways they make your day brighter. Focusing on these positives shifts your perspective and reminds you why you chose each other in the first place. It's also important to set boundaries around influences that fuel comparison. Social media, for example, often amplifies feelings of inadequacy by showcasing only the highlights of other people's lives. Limit your exposure to these platforms if they leave you feeling disheartened or envious. Instead, invest your time and energy in nurturing the relationship you have. Every person carries dreams within them, hopes, ambitions, and aspirations that define who they are and what they want to achieve. Dismissing those dreams, whether intentionally or unintentionally, is one of the quickest ways to create distance and diminish trust in a relationship. Supporting someone's dreams is not just about being a cheerleader, it's about showing respect for their individuality, their potential, and their vision for the future. When someone shares their dreams with you, it's a vulnerable act. They're revealing a piece of their inner world, something that matters deeply to them. Whether it's starting a business, pursuing a creative passion, or achieving a personal milestone, these dreams represent who they are and who they want to become. When you dismiss those dreams, even subtly, it sends a message that you don't believe in their potential or that their aspirations aren't worth taking seriously. Dismissing dreams can happen in many ways. It might look like outright criticism, saying their goals are unrealistic or unattainable. It might sound like sarcasm or jokes that belittle their aspirations, even if those remarks are made in jest. Sometimes it's more subtle, like a lack of enthusiasm or a failure to engage in conversations about their goals. These actions, whether intentional or not, can chip away at their confidence and create a sense of isolation. One of the most common reasons for dismissing a partner's dreams is fear of change, fear of failure, or fear of being left behind. For instance, if their dreams involve significant personal growth or a major life transition, it can feel threatening. You might worry that their success will create distance or that pursuing their ambitions will shift the dynamics of the relationship. While these fears are natural, it's essential to recognize them and address them without undermining your partner's goals. Another challenge is when their dreams don't align with your own vision or values. Perhaps their ambitions involve risks you're uncomfortable with, or maybe their priorities feel misaligned with the life you're building together. In these cases, it's important to have open, honest conversations about how to navigate these differences without dismissing their dreams outright. Compromise and understanding are key, but so is mutual respect for each other's aspirations. Encouragement is a powerful tool. Supporting someone's dreams doesn't mean you have to agree with every decision or step they take. It means showing that you believe in their ability to succeed and grow. Ask them about their goals, listen actively, and offer help or guidance where you can. Celebrate their progress, no matter how small, and be a steady source of encouragement during setbacks. At the same time, supporting someone's dreams doesn't mean neglecting your own. A healthy relationship allows space for both individuals to pursue their goals without one overshadowing the other. Balancing this requires clear communication and mutual effort, but it's possible when both partners prioritize each other's growth and fulfillment. Money is one of the most significant and sensitive topics in any relationship, yet it's often avoided due to discomfort, fear of conflict, or a desire to keep the peace. However, avoiding financial discussions doesn't make financial issues disappear. It only allows them to grow unchecked. Open and honest communication about money is not just about avoiding problems, it's about building trust, fostering teamwork, and creating a shared vision for the future. Avoidance of financial discussions often stems from discomfort or fear of judgment. For many people, money is tied to emotions like insecurity, pride, or shame. Talking about debts, income, spending habits, or financial goals can feel vulnerable, especially if one partner feels they're not meeting certain expectations. However, avoiding these conversations only creates a breeding ground for misunderstandings, resentment, and financial strain. A lack of financial transparency can lead to assumptions and misunderstandings. For example, one partner may assume that they are both saving for a shared goal, like buying a home, while the other is spending freely without realizing the impact on their joint finances. These disconnects, when left unaddressed, can lead to frustration and conflict down the line. Another common challenge is differing financial habits or philosophies. One person may be a saver while the other is a spender. One might prioritize investments while the other values experiences like travel or dining out. These differences are not inherently problematic, but they can cause friction if not discussed openly. Avoiding these discussions only deepens the divide, while addressing them provides an opportunity to understand each other's perspectives and find common ground. Financial discussions are not just about managing current expenses, they're about planning for the future. This includes setting goals such as buying a house, saving for retirement, or starting a family, and aligning on how to achieve them. It also means addressing potential challenges like paying off debt or building an emergency fund. Avoiding these conversations leaves both partners unprepared for the future and increases the risk of financial stress. Creating a safe space for financial discussions is essential. Start by acknowledging that these conversations can be uncomfortable and approach them with openness and empathy. Instead of framing the discussion as a critique or interrogation, focus on creating a collaborative dialogue. Use language that emphasizes partnership, such as how can we work together to meet our financial goals rather than why are you spending so much. Transparency is key. Share your financial situation honestly, including income, debts, and expenses. This level of openness fosters trust and ensures that both partners are working from the same set of facts. Avoiding financial discussions often stems from a fear of being judged, but transparency helps dismantle this fear and creates a foundation of mutual respect. Setting shared goals is another important step. Whether it's saving for a vacation, paying off student loans, or building a retirement fund, having a clear objective helps align both partners' efforts. These goals should reflect both individual and joint priorities, ensuring that neither partner feels overlooked or sidelined. It's also important to establish boundaries and expectations around spending and saving. This might involve creating a budget, setting limits on discretionary spending, or agreeing on how to handle major purchases. These agreements help prevent misunderstandings and ensure that both partners feel comfortable with how money is being managed. Regular check-ins are a valuable tool for maintaining open communication about finances. These can be formal, like a monthly meeting to review the budget, or informal, like a casual discussion over coffee. The key is consistency. Regular conversations help normalize the topic and prevent small issues from escalating into larger problems. Holding on to grudges is like carrying a heavy weight that slows you down and creates unnecessary tension in a relationship. When you hold a grudge, you're not just punishing the other person, you're punishing yourself. Resentment festers over time, clouding your ability to see the good in your partner and keeping the relationship trapped in the past. Learning to release grudges is one of the most liberating and constructive steps you can take for your emotional well-being and the health of your relationship. Grudges often stem from unresolved pain. When someone hurts you, whether through words, actions, or neglect, it's natural to feel upset or betrayed. These feelings are valid, but holding on to them indefinitely can transform hurt into bitterness. The longer a grudge lingers, the more power it holds over your thoughts, emotions, and interactions. Instead of addressing the root cause of the hurt, a grudge allows it to grow into a barrier that separates you from your partner. One of the dangers of holding grudges is that it creates a cycle of negativity. When you're harboring resentment, it's easy to view everything your partner does through a critical lens. Even neutral or positive actions may be overshadowed by the lingering hurt. This mindset can lead to misunderstandings, unnecessary arguments, and a breakdown of trust and communication. Over time, the relationship becomes defined not by the connection you share, but by the unresolved issues that hang over it. Grudges also rob you of emotional energy. Constantly replaying past grievances in your mind drains your focus and leaves less room for positivity and growth. Instead of being present in the relationship, you're stuck reliving moments of pain or disappointment. This not only affects your connection with your partner, but also impacts your overall sense of peace and happiness. It's important to recognize that letting go of a grudge doesn't mean condoning harmful behavior or forgetting what happened. It means choosing to release the emotional burden and focusing on moving forward. Forgiveness is not about saying what you did was okay. It's about saying, I'm not going to let this control me anymore. It's a gift you give yourself as much as it is a step toward reconciliation. Addressing grudges requires honest communication. If something your partner did continues to bother you, it's important to express your feelings in a calm and constructive way. Avoid bringing up past mistakes in moments of anger or using them as ammunition in unrelated conflicts. Instead, focus on sharing how the issue has affected you and what you need to heal and move forward. For example, saying, "When this happened, it made me feel hurt and unsupported. I'd like to talk about how we can prevent this in the future." Opens the door to resolution rather than further conflict. Another key to releasing grudges is practicing empathy. Try to see the situation from your partner's perspective, even if you don't agree with their actions. Understanding their intentions, circumstances, or challenges can help soften feelings of resentment and create space for compassion. This doesn't mean excusing bad behavior, but it does mean recognizing that everyone makes mistakes and that no one is perfect. Focusing on the bigger picture can also help put grudges into perspective. Ask yourself, is this issue worth the strain it's placing on our relationship? Am I holding on to this because it truly matters, or because I'm struggling to let go? Reflecting on these questions can help you differentiate between issues that require resolution and those that can be released without further discussion. Building a habit of forgiveness takes time and effort, especially if you've been hurt deeply. It's a process of letting go, piece by piece, and choosing to prioritize connection over conflict. Each time you release a grudge, you create space for trust, understanding, and growth to flourish in its place. Independence is one of the cornerstones of a healthy relationship, and undermining it can lead to a loss of balance, resentment, and a diminished sense of self for both partners. A strong relationship doesn't mean two people losing themselves in each other. It means two whole individuals coming together to create a partnership that supports mutual growth. Undermining independence, whether intentionally or unintentionally, can erode the foundation of trust, respect, and individuality that every successful relationship needs. Independence begins with personal identity. Each person enters a relationship with their own dreams, passions, and responsibilities. These elements are not just parts of who they are, They are what make them whole. When you undermine your partner's independence, even subtly, you risk sending the message that their individuality is less important than the relationship itself. Over time, this can lead to feelings of suffocation or a sense that they're losing touch with their true self. Undermining independence can take many forms. It might involve questioning or discouraging their personal choices, such as the hobbies they pursue, the friends they keep, or the career paths they choose. It could manifest as excessive dependence, where one partner relies too heavily on the other for emotional or practical support, leaving little room for autonomy. In some cases, it can even look like subtle control dictating how they should spend their time or resources under the guise of helping or caring. One of the most common misconceptions is that love and independence are opposites. In reality, they are complementary. True love means wanting the best for your partner, even if it means supporting their growth in directions that don't always align with your immediate desires. For example, encouraging your partner to pursue a career opportunity that requires them to spend more time away from home isn't about choosing their job over the relationship. It's about respecting their aspirations and understanding that their success contributes to their happiness and fulfillment. Independence also plays a vital role in maintaining attraction and respect in a relationship. People are naturally drawn to confidence, ambition, and self-sufficiency. When your partner sees that you value your own independence and respect theirs, it strengthens the bond between you. On the other hand, constant neediness or possessiveness can drain the relationship of its vitality and lead to frustration or disengagement. A crucial aspect of supporting independence is trust. Trust your partner to make decisions that are right for them, even if those decisions differ from what you might choose. Trust them to manage their time, relationships, and priorities in a way that honors their values and commitments. Trusting their independence doesn't mean disengaging. It means creating a space where they feel free to be themselves without fear of judgment or control. Encouraging independence also involves celebrating each other's growth. When your partner achieves something on their own, whether it's completing a project, learning a new skill, or overcoming a challenge, acknowledge their efforts and show pride in their accomplishments. These moments of personal victory are not just theirs, they also contribute to the strength and vibrancy of the relationship. At the same time, nurturing independence doesn't mean neglecting connection. A healthy relationship balances individual freedom with shared commitment. It's about finding ways to support each other's journeys while staying connected through shared goals, experiences, and values. This balance requires communication, understanding, and a willingness to adapt as both partners evolve over time. Self-reflection is another key to avoiding the undermining of independence. Ask yourself, am I supporting my partner's growth, or am I holding them back because of my own fears or insecurities? Am I respecting their need for personal space and autonomy, or am I unintentionally encroaching on it? Being honest about your own behavior and motivations can help you course correct when needed and strengthen the relationship in the process. In relationships, understanding what to avoid is as important as knowing what to embrace. By steering clear of behaviors that undermine trust, respect, and individuality, you create a foundation for a deeper and more meaningful connection. Avoiding actions like suppressing communication, enabling bad behavior, or dismissing dreams allows both partners to thrive as individuals and as a couple. Relationships flourish when built on mutual support, honesty, and balance. By being mindful of these principles, women can foster relationships where both partners feel valued, respected, and empowered, paving the way for growth, harmony, and lasting happiness.